And give me one moment. Great. And so welcome to the Small Business Reserve Liaison Training presented by the Governor's Office of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs. I'm Lisa Mitchell-Sinar. For those of you who just joined, I'm one of the SBR compliance managers. Just to repeat, this is an internal training intended for Maryland State SBR liaisons, procurement professionals responsible for compliance, administration, and reporting of the SBR program. This is not a meeting for our vendor community, for business owners. Excuse me. This is not a meeting for business owners. We have, the Governor's Office has a series of virtual technical training classes that vendors can sign up for on the homepage of our website, gomdsmallbiz.maryland.gov. And so for those folks who do ask you whether or not they can attend this training, this is not for them. So let me do this. Give me one moment. I just want to make sure. Yes, I am recording. Just needed to check. It's been a moment since I've done this. And here we go. So welcome, everybody. Here's what we are going to cover today. We're going to do an overview of the SBR program because we do have some folks who are new. We're not going to go at length in it, but want to make sure everybody that we're all on the same page. Want to look at Small Business Reserve Program certification that is different from MBE certification and also our veteran-owned small business enterprise certification. So we want to be able to make sure that all folks understand that as well, the certification. Want to talk about the roles and responsibilities of the SBR liaison officer. That's come up quite a bit, and we'll get into that. Our office was mandated to do a liaison survey, asking agencies who are your SBR and your MBE liaisons. And so I want to make sure everybody understands the responsibilities that are described in statute for SBR liaison officers. We're also going to get into the procurement review group process, in particular as it relates to the procurement review group guidance and best practices worksheets for the Small Business Reserve implementation of the Small Business Reserve Executive Order that took effect last February, but we are still getting a lot of folks not quite understanding that whole PRG process as it relates to the implementation of this executive order. It's not a lot different, but we're finding that some folks are not understanding how to go through the steps in terms of the Small Business Reserve implementation guidelines. We're also going to talk about compliance considerations, reporting best practices, annual and quarterly reporting, even though annual reports, they're past due, but we're also going to remind you about those. I want to talk a little bit about where we are in terms of annual reporting, but quarterly reporting. Also, we're getting ready to start looking at the procurement forecast for the next fiscal year, 2023, as well as your strategic plans. Also want to let folks know, take a look inside of the SBR reporting toolkit, make sure that you're visiting there, you know how to get there, updated materials, the most up-to-date templates and instructions when you're completing reports. And after I complete SBR training today, we're going to get our VSBE veteran-owned small business enterprise updates from my colleague, Danielle Davis, who is one of the newest members of our team. She's going to provide a VSBE program update. Now, if this is going to be at the end of the presentation, so if you attended the February 3rd MBE liaison training, this is the same information that you're getting on the VSBE program. So you don't have to stay for that portion. When we get to that, we'll make it very clear that we're doing the VSBE portion. Since we do not currently have VSBE liaisons mandated, we present the information to the MBE and SBR liaisons in our trainings, who are usually tasked somewhere in there. You're tasked. Some people are tasked with the VSBE program as well. So that's the reason that we're a little redundant in terms of offering this in our MBE liaison training, as well as our SBR liaison training. And following Danielle, we're going to have some announcements just to make sure that you guys are aware of upcoming important dates for other training, compliance calls, things like that. And there's also a link to a customer service survey at the end of the presentation. And it's just several questions. The link is also in the calendar invitation. And we'd appreciate it if you would complete this if you can today after the training. Your feedback is really important to us because we're not doing the training for us, we're doing it for you, and just trying to make sure that we are giving you information that is helpful, that's valuable. And so all feedback, you guys are our partners and our colleagues, and so it's really helpful when we're able to hear from you. So thank you for taking the time out to participate today. The slide deck I mentioned and the recording will be available in today's calendar invite and will be posted in the SBR toolkit in about a week or so. For those of you, you will be able to share. If you can't get access to that, I can send you the link is what I was going to say. And so please let us know. We want to make sure that you're able to take advantage of this. Now, all of our team are not on board today. We are a small, but what do we say? Our special secretary describes us as a small but mighty crew. The Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, affectionately and formally known as GOMA, the Governor's Office of Maryland of Minority Affairs. Just want to make sure you still know who our team is and how to reach us, and that we are all very reachable, whether it is virtual or in person. Our Special Secretary, Jimmy Ree, our leadership, our Chief of Staff, Ms. Pamela Gregory, Allison Tavick, our Director of Communications and Outreach, Chantal Kai-Lewis, our Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs. Many of you guys know Chantal as well. Eduardo Hayden, who's our Small Business Outreach Manager, who many of you are hearing from again because we're bringing back our Ready, Set, Grow Procurement Connection workshop. It's now virtual for right now, but you're going to be hearing about that. And many of you know me, Lisa Mitchell-Sinar, one of our Small Business Reserve Compliance Managers. I think she is on board. Ms. Tanita Johnson, who is also one of our Small Business Reserve Compliance Managers, who many of you talk with back and forth, whether it's checking the certification of a company that believes they're SBR certified or just in general questions. Tanita's on board with us. You want to say good morning, Ms. Tanita?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Nichelle Johnson, our MBE compliance manager, who you all know, she was just on board for our MBE liaison training earlier in the month. We have Karen Reyes, one of the newer members of our team, who is also an MBE compliance manager. And many of you are becoming familiar with her. I think she worked with, she did with Nichelle on the MBE liaison training. Gerald Stinnett, many of you know, is our MBE compliance manager that's in charge of the VLT operations, the casinos, and their compliance. And I mentioned her to you today, and you get a chance to kind of say a hi to her. Miss Danielle and Davis, who is our VSBE compliance manager, one of the new members on our team as well. Danielle, would you like to say good morning?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and don't forget to stay for the VSBE program at the end. Thanks.
I love it. I love it. Nice little commercial. This is, I have to tell you, we work with, we're blessed, no doubt about it, the people that we work with. And let me actually go back, because what I wanted to show you guys is that whenever you are looking, and this is why I wanted to mention the slide date, when you all are trying to reach us, all of our information is on our website. And I put all the links in here so that if you're ever wondering, how do we get Lisa, how do we get whoever, you can reach all of us on our website, on the contact us link on our web. And I know most of the state agencies' websites are getting updated. So that's another reason why I wanted to link you to our website so you can see kind of our new look. But not only do you see our email addresses, our titles, but also our mobile phones. And so whether we are in the office or not in the office, we're pretty reachable. And so please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. And our leadership also wants to make sure that you're able to connect with us. And we all have different roles. I know sometimes folks will reach out to me with MBE questions or VSBE questions, and I'm happy to help. But most times I am going to try to funnel you over to the compliance manager, to my colleague who covers that area. Okay, and so just want to make sure we all know who everybody is. So a little bit about, for new folks, and a reminder to those who are returning, a little bit about the SBR program. I won't, belabor this, but this program was created in 2004. Code of Maryland Regulations 2111-0106 details the SBR program. The SBR program provides small businesses with the opportunity to participate as prime contractors on state-funded contracts. Now, for those of you who know this, you know this. For those who are new, we don't want to confuse this with the MBE program and the VSBE program. The Small Business Reserve Program is prime contracting. It is not a subcontracting program. So just want to make that clear. The SBR program directs participating agencies or departments to the extent practicable to spend at least 15% of its fiscal year procurement expenditures with certified small businesses. Now, this is the part that I want to make sure that we're all clear on. Only those payments resulting from a procurement that is designated as a small business reserve procurement may apply towards the procurement unit's overall small business reserve payment achievement, that 15%. Our annual reports are available on our website, and we're going to go to the website. I have links to the website, and you can search by your agency. We report every agency's attainment goal toward the legislatively mandated spend. The reason it's important to note that only designated procurements, SBR designated procurements count toward the 15% is because many of you may be familiar when the program started that any money that was spent with a small business reserve certified company counted toward your agency's goal. But that was changed legislatively, and 2018 is when it took effect. And so while we do track the spending that agencies do with businesses that are certified in the Small Business Reserve Program, that doesn't count toward the 15%. If you just happen to do business with an SBR, that does not count toward the 15%. And so important to note, once a solicitation has been designated as SBR, and that's what we're pushing, that's what the legislation, the executive order is pushing for, and we're going to get into that, an award can only be made to a small business certified in the SBR program. Small businesses, and this is the caveat, small businesses do not have to be certified in the program at the time that they're bidding, okay? That is our legal interpretation of this, and our guidance is that small businesses do not have to be certified at the time of the bid. They must be certified at the time of the award. And we're going to discuss this later when we review the best practices, Small Business Reserve Executive Order implementation guidelines, because that seems to be causing a little maybe confusion for some folks, but we're not looking at the Veteran Small Business Enterprise Program. We're not looking at the MBE program right now. We're talking about the Small Business Reserve Program. Once a solicitation has been designated as SBR, only firms who have been certified can actually be awarded. So you got a bunch of small businesses that have come into the space. They're responding to the solicitation, and we're going to talk about the process. Procurement officers should be asking them, and there's guidance that we'll talk about that directs them. If you want to be eligible for an award of this contract, you're going to need to get certified in the Small Business Reserve Program. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well. Also, the eligibility standards for the Small Business Reserve Program. And because this is a self-certifying, give me one moment, did not mean to do that. Because this is a self-certifying program, we want to make sure that when you're directing folks who may want to get certified, that you're aware of the standards, the eligibility standards. And I don't know why my little link, I have to work on that. It's not working. Let me see if I can get this up, because I wanted you guys to be able to see this, and bear with me. Take me a second. 1 second. Okay, here we go. And hopefully you're able to see this. And you can let me know either in the chat or somebody pipe in if you're able to see on the screen the Small Business Reserve Program. Are you guys seeing that? Hopefully. Yes?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you so much. So want you to be aware that when you're directing vendors, or you yourself are when you yourself are curious as to whether or not, oh, goodness, a vendor is eligible for the Small Business Reserve Program, all you have to do is go right to our homepage, Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, go to the SBR tab, you see the overview, and we have the program eligibility standards here, right here, so that you can see them, that a business has to be a for-profit business other than a broker, and that they then have to be independently owned and operated, not a subsidiary of another business, not dominant in their field of operation. This is straight from the legislation and from COMAR in terms of the standards. And so we give the citations here, but want you all to be familiar with how to get this information, because also I've been noticing information on your websites as we are all refreshing our websites and updating our websites. We want to make sure that you have current information on your websites. Not saying SBE or small business enterprise when you're talking about the Small Business Reserve Program. They are different. And so I want to make sure, as the liaisons and folks who are facilitating this program within your agency, that you're clear in terms of the Small Business Reserve Program. And if you're unclear, come back to the guidance that we have, reach out to us, because we're more than happy to explain. We can't always get into every detail in these meetings, but we can at least give you the guidance and where to go to look, and to know to reach out to us going forward if you're not clear, because we don't want you to be misinformed. And so SBR program certification, I mentioned, this is an online process through the vendor registration process on the state's e-procurement platform. That's e-Maryland Marketplace Advantage. Those of you who've been with the state for quite some time have an understanding of how this works. We had an old system, e-Maryland Marketplace. Now we have a new system, e-Maryland Marketplace Advantage. They're similar, but they're not the same. Vendors must complete their e-Maryland Marketplace, or EMMA, registration. And when they complete that registration process, during the process, they are asked whether or not they want to complete the Small Business Reserve certification application. Upon completion and submission of the SBR application, they'll be either approved or found non-compliant. This is an instant certification. Once they save and submit this application, and let me see if I can, let me just do this right quick. Give me one moment. Okay. Once they, you think you're doing it and then you don't. 1 second. Here we go. So when vendors are on Emma's home login page, this is where they get to complete their online registration, which is free to register in Emma. And I'm only saying this because we get questions from procurement folks who just are not connected to the vendor side of Emma. You know your part of Emma, but perhaps not the vendor side in terms of what the vendor experience is. And so it's important for folks to know that they cannot get certified in the Small Business Reserve Program until they complete this vendor registration in Emma. And during that process, they get to get certified. If they are eligible, they can fill out the application, and they'll either be found compliant, approved, or not. If they are approved, they're going to see an effective date and an expiration date in their Emma profile. They will also see an SBR number in the company info section of their profile. And Small Business Reserve certification must be renewed annually. Important to note. We've got folks who have certification. They said they got certified back in 2012, and they're very proud of it, vendors. And they've not gotten updated since then. They're holding on to that number that is no longer valid. And they can get back into the program and get certified. But this is an annual certification. That's why it's important to look at the SBR Small Business Reserve overview and look at the statute. It's an annual certification. Vendors receive, once they do get certified in e-Maryland Marketplace and get their Small Business Reserve certification, they should receive an alert in their Emma account about 30 days prior to their expiration. They also get an email sent to the primary contact that they have noted in their Emma profile. Welcome aboard. In their Emma profile. And so it's important that they know whether they're certified or not. Simply having a number doesn't mean that you're certified. So let me do this. We currently have a little over 3,000 vendors who are certified in the Small Business Reserve Program. And just to be quite frank, we have been experiencing, Email and Marketplace Advantage has been experiencing some challenges in terms of, we had a little bump in the road, the system did, during the last 1.2 upgrade. We had some, did you want to ask a question, Cindy?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem. During the 1.2 upgrade around the holiday season, we had some issues with Emma in terms of vendors being able to access, I don't know who Malcolm Jackson is, but we'll see. Welcome aboard, Malcolm. Are you one of our procurement professionals? Oh, terrific. I see you in an office. You're not a business owner, right? Can you unmute for a moment?
Hi, correct. This is Malcolm Jackson with MAA.
Okay, terrific. If you can mute your microphone and turn off your screen, no problem. Welcome aboard. Nice to meet you. I'm Lisa Mitchell-Scenario, one of your presenters today. So talking about, we've been working to build the number of certified vendors that are inside of Emma that are already certified. Even though vendors do not have to be certified at the time that they're bidding, we want to drive as many vendors to the Small Business Reserve Program so that they are certified, so that when you are writing your solicitation and looking to see who's available, you have a nice database directory of vendors that are already certified to work with. Now, that the rules are you're not simply relying on that database, but we are doing everything we can to drive vendors to go ahead and get certified now. But as I mentioned, a few bumps in the road in terms of Emma really has impacted our directory. So we're working through those bumps through our technical training classes that our office is doing even today. I think it's the subcontracting in the MBE program. But we're also in all of our technical training classes that we do to the with the vendor community, we are asking them to get registered in Email and Marketplace and to see if they're eligible for any of the certifications. And if they are, to go ahead and fill those out, because they're tools. And that's what we tell the vendors. These are tools. If you're a small business, you're able to get certified in the Small Business Reserve Program. And so in a contract, solicitation is SBR only, is designated SBR only, then they're only having to compete against similarly situated businesses as opposed to the larger businesses where it's nearly impossible for them, small businesses, to be competitive. So we're letting them know this Small Business Reserve certification is a valuable tool, can be, for small businesses that want to prime contract on state-funded contracts, or state-funded solicitations. So we are letting them know that, and we're making sure you guys understand the program so that you can market it as well inside of your agencies. And that brings us to, let me just say, and we're going to look at how to see an SBR certification as we go down a little further in the program. But want to talk about right now the role and responsibility of the SBR liaison officer in COMAR. Covers the SBR liaison officer. The liaison officer is maybe a person in your agency may have all of the responsibilities as the SBR liaison, or it could be divided among several people depending on the size of your agency. However, there is one person who is supposed to be designated as the SBR liaison, or the SBR liaison officer, and who is responsible for the administration of the unit's Small Business Reserve Program. Our office was mandated to conduct a series. Cheryl, one second. Our office was mandated to conduct a series of monthly liaison surveys looking at MBE liaisons as well as SBR liaisons. And these are still going on. what we found is that some people who told us that they were SBR liaisons were not. They were either interim or just contacts. And so we're going to have to narrow this down. And those of you who are listed as the SBR liaisons need to know what responsibilities you have. The liaison is supposed to be an employee in the administration, as we said, of the unit Small Business Reserve Program. This is supposed to be a high-level employee reporting directly to the agency head or the procurement unit. And this is where this becomes an issue, is, as I mentioned, we have to report every participating agency's SBR attainment. Where is your agency as it relates to that 15% goal? How much did each agency spend with small businesses? We post those numbers in our annual report every year. And what happens is, over time, when our special secretary is meeting with other cabinet secretaries and discussing how agencies are doing in terms of their numbers, there are some secretaries who don't know what's happening with their small business reserve attainment. And they should, because the SBR liaison is supposed to be reporting to a high level, to the head of the procurement unit, at least to the head of the procurement unit. So to say that we don't know what's going on, that's what we're finding out, that within agencies, some liaison officers or persons who are tasked with this are kind of getting buried over in a corner where they're trying to work this program out, but they're not getting the kind of support and communication that the legislation says that they should be getting. Under COMAR, the SBR liaison officers' responsibilities include coordinating the procurement unit's outreach events to the small business community. And thank you to all of you who are really doing that, in particular during COVID and when things are more challenging, that you're still having outreach events, you're still connecting with vendors virtually. This is so valuable and really appreciated. Some of you, if you've not already been contacted, expect vendors are going to be reaching out to you. They are reaching out to us even more as things are opening up more. And so expect to hear also from our small business outreach manager. I mentioned to you, Eduardo Hayden. We have restarted our Ready, Set, Grow procurement connection workshop. And this was when we did it in person prior to COVID. Every other month, we were going around the state of Maryland and bringing agencies to locations where they could tell vendors what they buy. Meet the buyer, meet the liaison is what we've had. So the virtual version of this is coming back in March. And those of you who've been contacted know that you're going to be participating. If you want to see who is already participating, you can go to our homepage. I'll take you there a little later and see what agencies are participating. I think we have about 4 or 5 agencies this time. So if you've not heard from Eduardo Hayden yet, expect to hear from him in the coming months to ask your agency to participate in our Ready, Set, Grow or RSG procurement connections. Also, as it relates to SBR liaison officers responsible for viewing the unit's contracting procedures to ensure compliance with small business reserve requirements. This is important because internally, if vendors are on contracts and they are certified, they're on SBR designated contracts, they got the contract, they got the award because they were certified, and they must maintain that certification in order to keep counting their participation. Until the legislation changes, vendors, you only get to count the money toward that attainment when the vendor is certified and they remain certified. So it's to your advantage internally to track vendor compliance, to remind vendors that they need to maintain that certification. They don't have to. The reality is that that's about a relationship, and we're telling, hopefully you're able to let them know that their being in compliance lifts the program. Procurement officers are able to designate more procurements when there is the capacity of businesses available to do the work. So we're asking them to advocate for their own program and stay in compliance. And the liaison officer should be a part of the procurement review group. And we're going to talk about that later as well. The liaison officer should be submitting required Small Business Reserve program reports and information that we're asking, as in the survey that we've been doing, reaching out to the SBR liaison officers, and assisting in the resolution of Small Business Reserve contracting issues. If a business owner, a vendor, a Small Business Reserve has a contract with your agency and they're not getting paid, and I've gone back and forth with not a bunch of agencies, a few where vendors are waiting, 50, 60 or more days for payment, in particular on small procurements, that can damage a business. If you're a small business owner and you have a $3,000 payment that's due and you've been waiting for an agency to pay, they're going to reach out to you. And what we're asking them to do is to be professional, to share the procurement with you, to tell you what it is, who they are, share the capability statement. But we're also asking them to reach out to you before there's a problem, to go ahead and cultivate that relationship, to send you their capability statements. If someone has their microphone open, please close it because I'm getting some fuzz there. Thank you. We're recording today's meeting, so we want to keep it as clean as we can. I'm going to do this just to make sure I'm not. Oh, here we go. I think, please forgive me because I wasn't looking in my chat. Emma, but not as related. There's no longer an MBE check box on the search screen. Is there still a way to search for MBE specifically? I'm going to pause mine just to answer this because I want to be able to answer your questions when you're asking them. Slide deck, please forward it. Okay. So Emma, but not SBR. Okay. If there's no longer an MBE checkbox on the search screen as it relates to Emma, Emma is not the directory of record for the MBE program. MDOT's directory is the directory of record. Vendors that do complete their online registration in Emma can check their MBE. They can check that they are MBE certified, and that is, they're kind of looping that in, but it is not a real-time right now connection. I mean, you can email the Emma help desk with their stock answer or what they're saying about this, but those databases, I mean, they might update it daily to try to make sure that if someone says they're an MBE in eMaryland Marketplace Advantage, that they're actually still certified in the MBE MDOT directory. But right now, MDOT's directory is the directory of record. So if you want to ensure that a business is MBE certified, you go to the MBE directory and look them up. I hope that answers your question. Should the liaison be a voting member on the PRG or just attend the PRG? You should be weighing in. I'm not sure which agency, but procurement guidance, and we'll get to that, says you should at least be weighing in. Whether or not it's an official vote, I think is an internal matter. I don't know that that's not legislatively mandated, but the guidance is that you're welcome to know, you absolutely should be a part of those meetings. You're the SBR expert. And so you're bringing that to the table, frankly, and because of the executive order, which may end up becoming legislatively, there's legislation to keep the executive order in place past this administration. You definitely need to be a part of it. So does the MBE liaison officer. And at some point, somebody's wearing that VSBE hat, veteran-owned small business enterprise hat. They don't have legislatively mandated liaisons yet, but that's a program for participating agencies that folks are supposed to be factoring in during the PRG. And we're going to go through the PRG, that process in just a minute. So hopefully that answered your question. Somebody's asking about the slide deck or the link. Tanita, were you able? Oh, she might not still be here. Tanita, I was going to. Let me do this because does somebody still need the slide deck? Please forgive me. I got distracted for a minute. If you still need the slide deck, let me know. I can probably forward it to you.
Yes, I still need the slide deck.
Okay, you still need it. Okay, you're not able to see. You're not able to see what we're doing now because you're on the phone. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Give me just one moment and I'll see if I can do this. I appreciate you guys' patience, but I would like to make sure that I can give this to you. Wait a minute. I might, Linda, I might have to do it during the break. I do apologize. I do apologize. I might have to do it during the break. It's just difficult for me to do all the pieces. I usually have a little extra help with that.
Lisa,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, would you like me to forward the presentation to them?
I don't know if you can. Can you pull it out of the meeting link, download it? I think
Yeah.
it might let you. Terrific. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I love the team. Thank you so much. Not able to open the slide deck. Okay, Linda, she's sending it to you now. Who makes a designation on MBE and SBR on the answers reports? Who makes a designation of MBE and SBR on the answers reports? That should be happening when you are creating your contract in FEMAS. When you're creating the contract, you should be able to designate whether it's an MBE or an SBR. If you are finding that the flags that you've designated procurement SBR, or there's MBE participation and the flags are not on the reports, please reach out and let me know, because I'd like to reach out to the folks who handle those reports at Answers and say the flags are not there. You're welcome to also email Do It and let them know that you're not seeing the flags on the 67, 68 reports or the credit card reports, that you're not seeing those flags, and to let us know, because sometimes things can go down. Quite frankly, the system we have legacy systems that are not perfect. So if you do notice that, reach out, because that can be, if the flag is not there and you know that a particular procurement was SBR designated and that you're in compliance, you want to count for that. As long as you can make sure that that company is certified and you knew that, you can count that participation. The reports are just not perfect, quite frankly. They're just not. Where were we? Liaison officers. And so here, we're going to get here. So you know that you're have quite a bucket for the SBR liaison officers. I also wanted to show you guys that the people who we are told when we reach out to you that you are the liaison officer for your agency, we list you on our public SBR liaison directory. This is on our website, Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs. I will show you. So I want you to see what you look like. So if you can go here, you can see we're listed alphabetically, the participating agencies, the liaisons, your contact information. And so if you see information on here that's incorrect, we are happy to correct it. I'll apologize in advance. Sometimes it can be our error that we've not put something in correctly. And frankly, people change jobs. And so just let us know. We will update the directory. We're happy to do that, because this is what we share with the vendor community when we do our monthly technical training classes. I've got prime contracting in the Small Business Reserve. I think it's coming up next month. I did it a few months ago. And other classes in our outreach events, we advise small businesses to reach out to the agencies to find out if they buy what the vendors sell. Now, we do tell them, do some research on the agency, look in Emma, see what agencies are doing the work, are buying the goods or services. Ultimately, if they think it's your agency, they're going to reach out to you. And we advise them in particular to reach out to share their capability statements, in particular as it relates to the small procurements, category 1 and category 2, that are below $15,000, because those are not currently being advertised on Emma. And they would like to get on your direct solicit list. They want to make sure that they're on your radar as it relates to these smaller procurements. This is really great when it comes to small businesses. They're looking for this. We call it the low-hanging fruit. And so we are directing them, please, get the capability statement, be professional. Also to look on your agency websites. If you guys have on your websites how to do business with your agency, every agency doesn't, but if you do, make sure that information is up to date, in particular as it relates to small businesses, because we're directing them to try to use your websites to get as much information so that when they reach out to you, they already have some information. They're not just asking you to explain the whole world to them. But if you need anything on the directory changed, updated, just please let me know. If it's SBR Liaison, if it's MBE Liaison, my colleague, Michelle Johnson. And if you're not sure who to contact, just give us a call and we will figure it out. So talking about the procurement review group process, the PRG shall review proposed procurement solicitations. This is right from the Office of State Procurement's website. Proposals to exercise options or otherwise modify the contract, and proposals to award sole source contracts when the resulting contract is eligible for designation to the Small Business Reserve Program when the total value is expected to exceed $50,000. Now, we're going to talk about the executive order that says the bucket between $50,000 and $500,000 is automatically designated to the SBR program unless you get a waiver. But procurements exceeding $50,000, you should be considering Small Business Reserve first anyway. There's not really a limit. It really depends on the industry in terms of what the limit is for a Small Business Reserve designated contract. But this is in terms of the PRG process. So you're looking at evaluation of minority business enterprise and veteran-owned small business enterprise participation goals when the total value is expected to exceed $100,000. So $50,000 on up, you're looking at every procurement. If it's a procurement, if it's not a procurement, if it's exempt from procurement, then no, you don't have to assess it. But if it is a procurement, then, and it exceeds $50,000, the guidance, the executive order says you've got to look at it to determine whether or not it could be designated as a Small Business Reserve contract. Actually, the default is that it is a Small Business Reserve designated contract unless you can prove that it shouldn't be. And when the threshold gets to be $100,000, exceed, I should say, $100,000, now you're looking, is there subcontractable work in terms of minority business enterprise and or veteran-owned small business enterprise participation. And so, yeah, that's where we are at this point. So when folks ask, now that there is the Small Business Reserve executive order, do we have to look at contracts to determine whether or not there should be MBE or VSBE participation? Yes, you should. The PRG shall determine the appropriate socioeconomic utilization methods to encourage maximum small and or minority and or veteran-owned business participation in each proposed contract. The PRG shall make recommendations, well, actually, I should say the procurement review shall make recommendations to the agency head and solicitations procurement officer concerning specific designations and or participation goals. That process is supposed to improve the space. It's supposed to uplift the space, not ignore it. And so it's if you're understanding it, then you're going to be in compliance. Under the SBR program, participating agencies are supposed to designate at least 15% of all eligible procurements as SBR. That has not been happening. Some agencies are doing great, and I'm going to do a shout out. Last fiscal year, the Attorney General's Office, Bowie State University, the Department of Planning, State Police, Towson University, all achieved 15% participation or greater. The rest of the agencies, unfortunately, did not. Now, some were, around 9%, 10%, and that's getting there. That's getting there. And I know that this is a lift, but this is not a request. It's a mandated 15%. And so we're reporting each agency's participation. And while many of the agencies are spending 10% or more of your procurements with vendors that are certified in the program, these are not designated procurements. You just happen to spend with an SBR company. And so that money doesn't count toward the 15%. We do post that in our annual report. In fiscal 20, more than $500 million was spent with SBR certified companies. Of that, only about 120 million of that were designated procurements. So all those other, the spend doesn't get counted toward the legislatively mandated 15%. And so it's understanding that. So as you're figuring out your strategy, you're looking at every opportunity. This executive order, the governor decided to laser in and make sure that SBR is now the default. It should have been, but I just think there are a lot of competing priorities, and it just was not clear to procurement that, and through us and through agency liaisons, that designate these things as SBR unless you cannot. So governor issued this executive order back in January of 2021. The implementation became effective February of last year. And so this engages the state contracting marketplace, us, to support small businesses, in particular during this really difficult period of COVID. This has been nuclear for a lot of small businesses. So they're looking for new customers, okay? And so the state is saying through this executive order, we've enhanced the Small Business Reserve Program by designating all procurements between $50,000 and $500,000 to the SBR program unless the procurement meets defined exemptions. And that's the thing. The Office of State Procurement people were involved in establishing the guidelines for the implementation of this executive order. Because at the end of the day, you guys, you know, a lot of you are procurement professionals, and so you've got to get stuff, you got to purchase things. I see a question here. Lisa, sometimes there's only one SBR, so the procurement can't be done as an SBR. Even though the SBR wins, we don't get credit. That creates challenges. You are correct. And so we've added a notes section in the quarterly report. We've added a notes section in the annual report to explain those kinds of things. It is wonderful when you can spend money when you're able to do business with a small business. That's great. The issue is that let's say there's only one SBR that's in the EMA directory, and we're going to talk about that. You don't stop there. You've got to do a broad search. Broad market research should be done in terms of looking for businesses that could compete for these contracts. And that's where I'm finding, and some of us are finding a disconnect in terms of that. I see that, is it Carrie said she's unable to open the slide deck as well. I cannot understand why the slide deck won't open. I apologize for that. I'll see what I can do during the break. I am very sorry about that. And again, I'm recording this, so you're going to be able to see it. Someone said we've designated more contracts as SBR, but it will take some time for our percentages to increase since the reporting is based on payments, not awards. That is correct. Again, this is the conversation that I love because what's happening with the executive order is that it is helping us to really focus in on the small businesses and the implementation of it. And we were not all clearly we weren't all working. We were not on the same page prior to the executive order because we were all kind of had maybe some different understandings. And there's also been a lot of turnover in terms of folks who are participating in this, and the increase in terms of the SBR designated SBR spend went from 10% up to 15%, and used to be able to just count any money spent, and then it became just designated. So we do understand that there are changes that are happening. It's just making sure that those of you who are tasked with who are the SBR liaison officers, that you understand the nuances of the program, that you understand the implementation and the guidelines, because then you're the experts. You're helping to drive that within your agency, and we're here to support you doing that. The Office of State Procurement, there to support. That's why they were involved in the developing the guidelines, so that it can be a little cumbersome if you don't understand it. But if you do, you're like, okay, this is the process and we're going to get through it. So we mentioned that the executive order now, anything between 50 and 500,000, not anything, eligible procurements between 50 and 500,000 are now automatically designated for the small business reserve. Because the threshold previously was 100,000 and over. That 50,000 to 100,000 are procurements that were not available really to small businesses before. And so that's a bucket that small business owners are looking at. If you search on email and marketplace Advantage Now, I don't know how many of you search on Emma, but I know business owners do. I search almost every day. Approximately, usually around 20% now of state of Maryland solicitations are SBR designated now. I've not been able to filter all the different industries. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm looking and it's beginning. I can see a difference in terms of the variety and the volume, and business owners are really appreciating this. Someone says, does an agency get penalized for not meeting the 15% when you may have one or two extremely large procurements, Alan, my best friend, procurements that drive your percentage down to an unrecoverable point? You're not penalized. This is not a one size fits all. Every agency may not be able to get to the 15%. That's what the notes section we've now added to the reporting is for. That's an opportunity for report preparers for the liaison to put it in context. So if you're a part of the PRG process, so you see what's happening, it's not a surprise to you that there are not a lot. Your agency is not able to designate as many of the small business reserve procurements as you would like. It's not a surprise. So you're able to explain that in your reporting. And when you're able to explain it, that's it. You know, that's it. It can only be what it can be. There are going to be exemptions. There are going to be exceptions. It's just putting those into context. And then the people who make these laws and decide on them understand. To facilitate this new expanded PRG process, Department of General Services has created several key documents. Now, some of you are familiar with these. Some of you are not. Let me see, who is this Malcolm Jackson? Hopefully he's with the state. And I'll just say this, Mr. Jackson, you just came on board. We're muting our microphones. I'm one of your presenters today, Lisa Mitchell-Sinar, and cameras are off because we're recording this and we don't want to have background noises or distractions. If you have a question during the presentation, you can put it in the chat box. We're talking about the SBR program and executive order and the documents that the Office of State Procurement and our policy folks developed in order to implement this program. And so you're going to become, if you're not already familiar, you're going to be looking, hopefully going to the source. And I want to take some time to do this today. And this is the executive order FAQs. This is the website. And I know the Office of State Procurement, like us, updated their website, did some changes. So I know people have said they maybe couldn't find things. We have the links here in the slide deck, so you will be able to link these. When you go to the Office of State Procurement, you can see this is the Procurement Review Group page, and it's got a lot of stuff in here. What I first want to make sure that I take you to is the executive order FAQs, the frequently asked questions. And these are good because this is what you guys are calling and asking me, asking our colleagues about the effective date. When did the executive order go into effect? Specifics. I'm not going to go back to February because this was back when the executive order first came out, were procurements that were previously, solicitations that were previously approved. Did they have to go back and designate them as SBR? And during a particular period, you did have to go back, but now it's fully implemented. So is the 15% set aside still in place? Yes, the 15% set aside is still in place. That's legislatively mandated. 15% of participating agencies' total fiscal year procurement expenditures for certified businesses through the SBR program. Because the executive order doesn't have a percentage on it, it could be greater than that. Okay, the 15% is still in place, but the executive order just lasers in even further by stating all procurements between 50,000 and 500,000. And as I mentioned, between 50 and 100,000 were not in the past designated for the Small Business Reserve Program. You only had to look at procurements above $100,000. That's where it's important to read this information. This is what, about it's about 4 pages. It will really help you if you go through this with these, sort of things that you're confused about. If my purchasing unit does not submit its PRG through the Department of General Services Office of State Procurement, does this executive order still apply? Yes. As previously stated, all institutions, departments with an SBR liaison are expected to comply with the executive order. Control agencies or units with delegated authority should develop best practices for implementing the executive order within their operation and provide that guidance to their team, like MDOT. MDOT has its own, Maryland Department of Transportation has its own forms, but they mirror the guidelines and the forms very closely align with the Office of State Procurement. Everyone else should be using these documents, and I'm going to take you to the PRG worksheets and documents, because if you're using old stuff, it's not going to work. It doesn't align. You're out of compliance. And so I want to make sure you know where to get this. And this is not just for the SBR program. This is for everybody. This is the Office of State Procurement in terms of all agencies and all things that you are procuring. Are there any exemptions to the executive order? This has been a very popular question. Yes. Not every purchase is suited for the SBR program. To my colleague, to our colleague Alan's point, the exemptions are outlined in the best practices, small business reserve, executive order, implementation guidelines under the exemptions section. I am going to go to that, but I wanted to make sure you know that is, and there's a link to that from OSP's website as well, from the frequently asked questions. If an exemption is determined, how do we obtain a waiver for procurements between the executive order threshold? And I'm just going to say, sorry, right in advance. Sometimes initially there was a flurry of activity that people were sending to the SBR waiver mailbox questions, and we answered some of those questions in some automatically generated emails, and folks just seemed to, I think, some glazed over. So I'm just going to apologize if it wasn't as clear as it should have been. The process for obtaining approval for an exemption is outlined in the procurement review group guidance and worksheets. I am going to go through that. That was issued by the Office of State Procurement and our office, the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs. In most cases, our office is simply notified of the waiver. You send it to our waiver mailbox, and we'll show you what that is. If the exemption does not fall within prescribed guidelines, that's when our office has to review and approve the waiver before the solicitation can be posted. Your determination for a waiver must be compelling for GOSPA to grant the waiver. Otherwise, it can be denied. And the SBR program designation would apply to the procurement. Now, that being said, I don't know those of you who might from time to time either participate in the Board of Public Works meetings or watch the Board of Public Works meetings, but the participants, I know that the Lieutenant Governor is watching for SBR participation. He mentions it. Did you get a waiver from GOSPA? Did you just post that without designating it as a small business reserve? So folks are watching to see if we're following the guidelines, and if we are, we're good. If you have a justification, no issue with getting a waiver. The turnaround time for a waiver is supposed to be 72 hours maximum, and I'm working on that deadline. And if you send a waiver request, a request for a waiver, and we don't get back to you, please reach out again, and we'll get back to you. Do not want to hold up the progress on your procurements. Sometimes we're getting paperwork that is very confusing. And so that's why I'm working to try to explain the process so that your paperwork can reflect what you're trying to do, and I'm not trying to have to untangle it all. Does GOSPA, do we want to see all SBR designation worksheets or just the worksheets with waiver requests? We do not want to see all your worksheets. If you've designated something as SBR, you simply keep that in your file as you normally would. The only other PRGs that result, sorry about that, only the PRGs that result in a procurement being exempt or are requesting a waiver are submitted to the SBR waiver mailbox to GOSPA. If during the procurement process an amendment was made to remove the SBR designation, the PRG designated procurement would have to be updated and submitted to GOSPA, and I'll show you that as well. So these are the things that we want to see. If you're not designating something as SBR, you're getting an exemption or a waiver, or if you're removing the designation because you didn't get adequate responses from small businesses. if the main point here, though, is even though the SBR automatically designates procurements 50 to 500,000, the PRG for the SBR and MBE and VSBE PRGs is applicable. Must be completed and signed by PRG members. And I'm seeing a lot of worksheets that are not signed. And so please, follow the instructions as best you can. Sometimes you can't get maybe the signature, but if you're copying your superiors or those who are participating, that can be your trail. But you want to have a trail as it relates to this. You don't want to just put out PRGs that no one else agreed to. Okay. And so the instructions outlined in the Procurement Review Group guidance and worksheet document here in the frequently asked questions, and we'll also go back to that. So what action should be taken if the procurement officer determines there's insufficient interest or response to a solicitation from certified small businesses? The solicitation can be amended. That's what we're saying. So your PRG worksheet can be amended. The SBR program designation can be removed, and those steps and then resubmitted to the SBR waiver mailbox. And for those, you don't have to wait for a response. You submitted your documents. That is not something that's a prescribed exemption that you submit the paperwork and we'll go through it. If we have a question, we'll reach out to you, but we don't want to stop you from working when you have followed the guidance. What's the best time to amend an active solicitation? We get asked that. The procurement officer shall make the determination based on their continued monitoring and interaction with potential bidders or offers. A justification for the amendment is required when notifying us that the solicitation has been amended. So there is guidance, and we're going to get to that, where you're tracking the interest. Some procurement officers, have the interest statements where vendors have to say, are you going to respond to the solicitation? Do you have any interest? Keeping those records, tracking that to say, you did your due diligence, you reached out, and the vendors just, were not responding. It's good if they can tell you why. Were there parts of the solicitation that were just not attainable for small businesses? That's the kind of information that's helpful as you're going forward, that when you're sending those exemptions or those waivers to us, we're looking and beginning to categorize that information so we can then tell vendors, this is what you need to do if you want to participate at this level. These are the industries, or these are the areas where there are not adequate SBRs or adequate small businesses who can participate on SBR designated procurements. Can MBE or VSBE participation goals still be applied? Absolutely. Absolutely. The procurement process doesn't change, and the evaluation for MBE and VSBE participation is expected to continue as currently conducted through the PRG process. And we mentioned the threshold is 100,000. You add absolutely contracts above 100,000 have to be looked at for MBE and VSBE participation. But you're welcome to, look at them even smaller than that. It really depends on the procurement, but that $100,000 is definitely the threshold. If a contract value is above 500,000, is a waiver required if the solicitation is not designated to the program? This is an excellent question. No, it's not. You are not required to submit a waiver because it's not between the 50. It's got to be between $50,000 and $500,000 for the executive order before you need to get a waiver from us. However, the PRG process for making the determination for not having SBR procurement should still be conducted as required, and keep your paperwork in order. That may come into play down the road in terms of whether it's meetings with our leadership and your agency in terms of why procurements, why your agency may not be meeting the 15%. We don't know how far folks are going to drill in. That's why filing and keeping a paper trail is so important. Lori said, you mentioned that you do not need to see the worksheet workup. Is there any way to reduce the length of the PRG worksheet to obtain needed information? Not that I'm aware of in terms of how you can reduce. Lori, why don't you unmic and ask that question, because I just want to understand this in terms of the needed
Hi,
information.
Lisa.
Sure. Hi, Lori.
Hi. I just, we do a lot of small procurements,
Mhm.
and we have implemented completing that document, even if we cannot locate SBRs to issue it to and make it into an SBR procurement, which is our goal to try to do that even with the small procurement.
What's the threshold when you say small? What threshold are you talking about? Below 50,000 or 50,000?
Below 50.
So below 50 is not within the executive order guidelines. It's 50 to 500,000. So
Correct.
you're saying below 50,000, you're still doing the PRG process,
Well, I was under
which
the
is fine.
impression
Yeah.
we were advised at SBAG that we need to be doing it for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mhm.
what I understood, that we're all supposed to work on doing SBRs as no matter what the level of procurement dollars are anticipated to be. And I guess even putting that aside, and we do have larger procurements, we have larger, but we have a lot of the small. This document is so, to me, it's very time intensive to get through it. And when you've got a procurement that you're trying to get issued, I feel like there should be another way to get the information that you need. Yes, we can make this an SBR. No, we can't make it an SBR, and here's why.
Right.
It seems because you have to go through each item, and I guess it's just very time consuming. And maybe other people have found a way to get through it quicker, but I find it very cumbersome.
So let me say this, because the executive order is 50,000 to 500,000. Below 50,000, I was not aware that you had to go through that whole process, because that is cumbersome. And that was the point, that you can go through that. But I was not, that it's mandated that you do the assessment of MBE and VSBE goals on every procurement, even below 50,000.
Like anything that went on Emma, anything. So I guess anything from 15 to 50
Oh, 15
needed
to
to go
All right.
on needed to use that as, I mean, I think the statement was every procurement, no matter the dollar amount, but I think the goal was to get it, if it was going on Emma, that you needed to have undergone the SBR review to see if you could make it an SBR procurement.
But you wouldn't be doing the waiver, you wouldn't be doing those things, because between 15 and 50 is, you're looking at it, you want to at least search the various directories to see if there are small businesses available. I mean,
Right.
I'm not clear. You're not having to do the VSBE necessarily, or the MBE. They want you to look at it, but you don't have to get a waiver of MBE or VSBE goals under
No.
$100,000.
No.
So yeah, so you're looking.
We don't need to submit it, but
Right.
was my understanding that we had to do the exercise and see what we could do. That was my understanding.
So we are encouraging, and you can get that from Office of State Procurement, and actually, how about we'll email after this meeting,
Okay.
because we want you to look at the possibility of doing work with small businesses, no matter what the threshold. We want it. I mean, but in terms of that 50,000, 15 to 50,000, when it's being advertised on Emma, we do want to make sure that small businesses are getting a bite at that apple, that it's not something that is just going under the radar, because it's just not fair. They don't necessarily have we're trying to change a culture here where it is small businesses are getting the attention, and that's how we're going forward. But in terms of the paperwork that you're expected to hold on to is to justify that you're looking for small businesses. But I know you do not have to, it's not as much to fill out if it's a smaller procurement. So
yeah.
let's.
I know we don't have to get the waiver on it, but even if we do, even if it's over 50, the document still is cumbersome to get through.
Well, now the over 50, I get you that it's cumbersome, but that's the process that was supposed to be happening at $100,000 before, and it wasn't happening. And the numbers show it wasn't happening. The agency numbers show that agencies were not going through this PRG process. And maybe that process needs to have more involvement. Maybe there need to be more people involved to lighten the load. But the process for 50,000 is the process.
Right.
And yeah, unfortunately, sorry.
Just a wish list that the
Yes,
document
okay,
could be
gotcha.
reduced. That's
Okay.
all. Yeah.
And you know what? This is what this interaction is for. And as we're going forward, you can mute. As we're going forward, we will definitely take that in. If folks have recommendations on streamlining, mark up the document and send it to us. All we can do, at some point, everything gets revised. It's a work in progress, I should say. So if you have specific areas where you think it could be revised, it's a Word doc, mark it up and share it. That would be
Okay.
great. That would be
Thank
great.
you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And I'm not to say so, but I definitely will always submit suggestions and be willing to listen, because Office of State Procurement got involved so that this wouldn't be as cumbersome if it were just people like me who are not procurement writing this. So they really wrote this knowing that it was going to be a little cumbersome, but that we were going to try to work with it along the way.
Right.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you. Thank you for help.
Oh, you're very welcome. Let me do this real quick. Just wanted to get across just a couple more of these, and that was if the contract value is above 500,000, is a waiver required if the solicitation is not designated? And I think I did answer that. No, if it's above 500,000, it's not designated as SBR. A waiver is not required. However, think about your numbers in terms of your annual reporting. And so maybe at some point that might factor into the note section of your reporting if you have significant procurements that are not designated for SBR. Our solicitations below 50 exempt from the executive order. And this is what Lori was saying. Yes, however, it's standard best practice at all contracts, no matter what the estimated value, be considered for SBR program designation or direct solicitation to certified small businesses in the program. So if they're not enough, if they're not at least 3 small businesses that could become certified, then you would not designate it as SBR. You could simply direct solicit them, but it's doing the work of finding out if there are enough. We're going to be, just for heads up, we're going to be taking a break at about 10:30. But I want to get through a couple of these other documents before we do that. And the next one is the best practices. And I'm doing this because we get the volume, you guys would not imagine, wish you would, because you're procurement. But I get so many questions about the documents that are right here. And I've been talking to folks to say, hey, can you please read the documents? Because once you read through them, it will begin to make sense. This gives you the background on the executive order, on the program, the executive order you can link to, but also the definitions in terms of, and for those of you who are new, the definitions of what's being discussed are very, very important. Now, to my point, exemptions and waivers to automatic SBR designation. And they were saying 50 to 500,000. If it's a procurement, it's automatically SBR. You have to do the work of saying why it shouldn't. The following exemptions or waivers apply to the automatic designation of the SBR program on contract purchases between 50 and 500,000. These are exemptions. Now, this isn't the worksheet, but this tells you the categories. I'll get to the worksheet next. The categories of exemptions: purchase or work orders made from statewide IDQ, including architectural engineering, A to E, or term contracts with one contractor. Purchase or work orders from state IDQ, including architectural engineering, A and E, or term contracts with multiple contractors that receive work orders by right of first refusal or round robin, where there is no secondary competition. Sole source contracts for proprietary goods or services. Procurement contracts with preferred providers. Procurement involving federal dollars, where inclusion in the SBR program actually conflicts with federal law or grant provisions. And procurement contracts from non-competitive negotiation for certain human, social, or educational services. So these exemptions are automatic. There are buckets, and I'm going to show you in the SBR designation worksheet where you can check if this is an exemption. These you check, you fill out all the forms, you complete the PRG process, but when you check this box, when you send your waiver, you don't have to wait for a response. When you send your exemption, you don't have to wait for a response from us, but you are sending it to the waiver mailbox. Now, this waiver, this is the one where I really need to have you guys understand. an EMMA search of small businesses registered to participate in the SBR program and read on, as well as a search of other available small business resources and databases, has yielded the identification of less than 3 eligible small businesses as defined in COMAR 2101-0201B. Basically, when procurement officers or liaisons say, we only found 3 SBRs in the EMMA directory, that's not a complete search. You have to search other directories as well. You're looking in EMMA for businesses that are certified in the SBR program. You're looking in EMMA for veteran-owned small business enterprises that are there. You're looking in the MBE directory, MDOT's directory, because those 3, VSBE, MBE, are all certified small businesses under the definition in terms of COMAR. They could be, many of them are eligible to get certified as a small business in the Small Business Reserve program. So you have to be looking at those directories as well, not just those that are already certified in the SBR program. That being said, we are working to build capacity and to get small businesses to go ahead and get certified, but they don't have to be certified at the time of the bid. So you don't confine your search to only those businesses that are certified in the directory at the time that you are writing the solicitation. So for those waivers, if you've done a search of all those databases, and we've got some more that we're asking you to search, the SBA directory, there's some others that Office of State Procurement has in the guidelines. I'll go down and show you those. If you've done those and you attach your spreadsheets or you fill out that information to say, hey, we looked under these categories of work, and we can't find businesses, we've talked to them, we've emailed, we looked at websites, we can't find at least 3, then that automatic waiver applies if you can't find at least 3. What we're doing on our end is we're looking at that data. And again, when we're reaching out to the small business community in our technical training and our outreach, we're saying these are areas where we don't have enough small businesses in order to designate these procurements as SBR. So we're working as a team this way. This is when a formal waiver request does not meet the prescribed exemptions granted by GOSPA. And if it does not fall, your exemption, into one of these buckets, or an EMMA search of small businesses yielded less than 3, if it's an other. And I'm trying to give an example of what an other is. It doesn't fall in any of those buckets. You check other. Then you have to give an explanation of why this exemption, this waiver, why you want this waiver. And there have been some cases there are where we've approved the waiver, and we will, if it can, because there are some things that just don't fit into the bucket. Everything's not Small Business Reserve. So procedures for designation for competitive procurements and secondary competition on statewide and master contracts. This is important. For competitive procurements or statewide and master contracts with secondary competition, designation to the SBR program is required unless a waiver or exemption is determined appropriate. Again, if you can't find more than 3 businesses, at least 3 eligible businesses, then the waiver applies. In making the determination, the agency must research and confirm if adequate competition exists. And I'm saying this because I've gotten a number of these submissions. So here's what happens if the PRG evaluation shows that adequate competition does not exist. The agency may request, as I mentioned, an SBR program designation waiver request of the program, SBR program, using the PRG evaluation designation worksheet part 2. When you're submitting this request for an SBR program designation waiver, the agency should address as many reasons as possible and provide supporting documentation, applicable documentation. That helps tell the story so we can all be covered. Now, if you're indicating other, the reason for the SBR program designation waiver request approval from GOSA, we then have to approve it before you can proceed. We have to copy the agency's, was it the Department of General Services, OSP, and other agency control authority as required. Those SBR designation waiver requests come to our SBR mailbox like the others, but the subject line says the agency name, the requisition number, and that this is an SBR program designation waiver request. That's a flag to us that this is one that needs consideration, that we have got to give you an approval within 72 hours. Many of you are checking the other box when it's an exemption that will just kind of, you don't need our approval, our pre-approval to proceed. This information, and I'm getting my time here, procedure for SBR designated solicitations. This is where this is going to be helpful for you to read. I've gone over this with our other colleagues. Prior to designating a procurement for the SBR program, the agency must conduct a thorough market research. We talked about this, using multiple sources besides Emma to assure sufficient small businesses are available. You'd be surprised how many folks just don't know about Emma yet, but you're going to bring them in to the system when you cast that wide net. The information should have been included on the PRG evaluation, SBR program designation worksheet form that was submitted and reviewed by DGSOSP or the appropriate agency prior to issuing the solicitation. So you want to make sure, even when you're designating a solicitation, that you've done your paperwork, because I get folks wanting to remove the designation when they put the initial SBR designated procurement solicitation out on the street and didn't really research it. And so it was never going to work. It's sort of a waste of their time. It's a waste. So do the market research. It will help you in the long term. All small businesses found from this market research should be directly solicited when the solicitation is posted in Emma. So this is important. So it's posting in Emma, but you're also going to direct solicit the small businesses that you found with this following language. And this is really helpful because many of the small businesses don't know about the SBR program. They don't know that if they're not certified, then they're not eligible for the award, but you're going to tell them in this email that the state of Maryland, your agency, invites the firm to participate in the attached procurement that's been designated as a small business reserve. In order to obtain the award, your firm must be registered and certified. Hear that: obtain the award, registered and certified in the SBR directory in the state's e-procurement system. Refer to the attached link on how to register to become certified as a small business eligible for the SBR program by using the Emma Quick Reference Guide number 7. And just so you know, if you get questions and concerns from business owners who are having difficulty getting certified, please drive them to our number, to our office, to me, to my colleague Tanita, or to our main number that's on our website that says, you just call our main number and ask to be connected to an SBR compliance manager. And we will work with them on making sure they understand how to get certified. Once the SBR designated solicitation has been issued, this is the part where you're monitoring. So you found enough possible companies, vendors that could participate, but are they going to? And so this is from procurement. Some examples of how you can monitor: reviewing what firms have looked at the solicitation and indicated interest in responding, reviewing attendance sign-in sheets if you're having a pre-bid proposal conference, tracking phone calls and emails regarding the solicitation, and keeping a log of the firms, their businesses, their status. Some people have gone out of business. They're no longer interested. Monitoring the number of small businesses that submit bid proposals in advance of the bid proposal due date. If it becomes evident, and this is the part to you, the procurement officer, that there is unlikely to be sufficient more than one bid proposal to the solicitation, the agency may determine that it's in the best interest of the state to amend the solicitation, remove the SBR designation to seek more competition. So you don't have to pull it off of Emma. You can simply amend the solicitation, and this is how you do it. Depending on how much time is remaining prior to the bid proposal, the agency should consider extending, and that depends on your monitoring period and what your rules are in terms of how long something has to be posted. This will give other vendors, once you take the SBR designation off, it gives other vendors who didn't think they could compete an opportunity to do so. Now, it may be beneficial for procurement officers to consider holding sometimes a second pre-bid or proposal conference, that depends on what you want to do, to notify vendors that this amendment is a possibility. The solicitation should include the following language at the end of the SBR notice on the cover page of the solicitation. So you're covering yourself. And this is the line that you can include. However, if small businesses do not show interest in the solicitation, the procurement officer has the right to remove the SBR designation via an amendment on Emma. That covers you. When the SBR solicitation designation is changed, you complete right here, section 3, submit that to our office, issuing the amendment on the solicitation. And as you're sending that SBR solicit designated worksheet amending that to our SBR waiver mailbox, you go ahead and post that amendment on Emma. You do not have to wait. These are helpful hints on how to conduct market research to find small businesses. This is really helpful. I've done one-on-ones with some agency folks actually going through looking for small businesses. And so I'm not procurement, but I want to understand more of what we're all experiencing in order to get businesses to the table. So it's important to consider the following in determining whether or not to exempt or waive a procurement. Secondary competition from being designated as an SBR procurement. You really want to weigh all these factors and go through this, and that way you're covered. You know you did your diligence in terms of this was not something that was going to be able to get adequate competition, because at the end of the day, the state wants to work with small businesses, but we got to have competition. And so this is your way of getting to that. Okay, so last thing that I'd like to show you before we take a break is the procurement review group worksheets and this procurement. So we went through the frequently asked questions, the best practices. Now you get to the guts, which is the guidance and worksheets. And this is where you are going to need, as we were talking about, to fill all of this out, to read this, because it is such a helpful guide if you read through it. Initially, it looks like a lot, but once you start reading it and become familiar with it, you'll realize that the steps for all new solicitations and secondary competition need to go through this process. Completing the PRG evaluation, SBR program designation worksheet, part 1A, mandatory for all solicitations, including those over 500,000, shall continue to be evaluated for SBR program designation. Now, they don't fall in over 5,000 exemption, but you should be continuing to fill out the paperwork. Completing the PRG evaluation MBE participation worksheet, part 1B. Completing the PRG VSBE participation worksheet, part 1C. Complete the PRG evaluation program designation worksheet, part 2. This is conditional. You're only submitting this if the procurement is determined to be exempt or warrants a waiver based on part 1A. And so you don't reach out to us to submit the waiver unless you don't fill out this part, unless you're going to get an exemption or a waiver. Completing the PRG evaluation designation worksheet, part 3. This is conditional. You're submitting this if during the procurement, the mandatory SBR program designation is removed via an amendment. Now, these are the steps. For sole source, you treat it the same as for a new solicitation, which means you go back to here and do all these steps. For renewed sole source, same as for renewed new solicitation, you go back and follow these steps. Steps for options for contracts with MBE and VSBE participation goals, tells you complete sections 1, 2, 3, and 5 of MBE participation worksheet and VSBE participation worksheets. This takes you through. Steps for contracts under 200,000, submit the same attachments as listed above. Add the list from MDOT for direct solicitations of certified MBEs if an MBE participation goal is not feasible. Add the list from EMA for direct solicitations of certified VSBEs if an MBE participation goal is not feasible. And here we're getting to the SBR program designation worksheet. And this is any procurement, executive agency, goods or services between 50,000 shall be designated for the Small Business Reserve Program after completing SBR Program Designation Worksheet Part 1A. If the solicitation meets the mandatory designation requirement, continue the normal process for the PRG review and designated procurement, including MBE and VSBE participation goals as determined. If you're reading this, you don't have all the questions of what do you do next. Is determined to be, if the solicitation is determined to be exempt or warrants a waiver, complete the SBR program designation worksheet part 2 and follow the instructions for submission to the GOSPA waiver mailbox. If you're amending during the procurement to remove the SBR designation and open the solicitation to all vendors, complete the SBR designation worksheet part 3 and follow the submission to GOSPA. So these questions, when folks ask, this is 1A, answering these questions helps you to figure out, is this something that should have been designated as SBR. This is how you get to that determination. All of these, the PRG group worksheet, OSP, you have to fill this out. If you searched for businesses, you have to show what directory did you search, what were the product descriptions. If you don't want to put it here, you can attach what your searches were. So you don't have to fill this in. You can just simply attach PDFs or whatever of the databases that you searched and put your information there. And thank you to those of you who've been doing that. That's fine. But just make sure that this is filled out completely. This is the process. MBE participation. Again, you're supposed to be filling this out and going through the process. I'm not going to get into MBE and VSBE drilling into that, but this is the process in terms of procurement. Okay, we got VSB. I want to get right down to this if we can. All of these signed off on. So this is your worksheet. So if you're asking for a waiver or an exemption, you have to list the solicitation number, that it's exempt from SBR program mandate on the following basis. And these are the different prescribed exemptions: preference procurement, procurement involving federal dollars, sole source, proprietary commodity purchase, non-competitive negotiated procurements of human, social, and educational, and EMA search of small businesses, listen, as well as search of all other databases. Please don't only look in EMA. Any of these particular exemptions, you simply submit your waiver, your designated worksheet to the waiver mailbox, and you do not have to wait for us to respond. If you are selecting other, waiver request approval is required. That's when you need to have your justification here. If you want to attach a separate sheet of paper, that's fine, or you can put it here. But when it comes to completion of part 2, just send all SBR program designation worksheets, the ones that meet the prescribed exemptions, you send those to the SBR waiver mailbox, the agency name, the requisition number, and SBR program designation worksheet. This is telling us this is one of the prescribed waivers, and you're not waiting for a response from us. You are proceeding with your solicitation because you filled out the paperwork the way you were supposed to. Now, SBR program designation waiver requests identified as other. Those are the ones that don't fit in the bucket. You have to do some explaining and show some other evidence and make your case. Those also get submitted to the SBR waiver mailbox, but we need the agency name, the requisition number, and SBR designation waiver request. That says to us, okay, the clock is ticking. They need an answer back within 72 hours, and we do it sooner if we can. When it comes to the PRG evaluation worksheet part 3, that's where you're amending a solicitation. You simply, this is your same worksheet, but now you're amending it to remove the solicitation number that it was designated, that it's removed. And if you see approval is not required, you send it to the mailbox. Again, SBR program designation, SBR program designated worksheet, send it, remove it, and you can proceed with your solicitation. And so let me do this before we take our break. Give me one moment. I just want to see if we have any questions before we do our break. And if you want to think about it and ask after the break, I think we're almost at 10:40, 10:38, 10:40. We're going to have a 15-minute break. So if we do not have questions right now, 10:40, at 10:55, at 5 of 11, we are coming back and we're going to be going until noon. So I would say, let's see, please do not close it out, turn your microphone off, but do not hang up. We'll have to readmit you, but we're going to break, let's say 10:40. We've got 15 minutes, 10:55. And when we come back, we're going to, if you have questions, we'll take them. And when we come back, we're going to talk about SBR compliance considerations, and we're going to be getting into the SBR toolkit. So 10:40, I'm going to pretend it's 10:40 even though it's 10:38, and we'll be back at 5 of, and I'll be looking out for you. Thank you so much. I'm going to continue. I'll just close my microphone off, and we're going to take a short break, 10 till 10:55. Thanks, guys. We're going to be resuming in about 2 minutes. It's 10:53. We'll be resuming at 10:55. All right, we're going to be getting underway in just another minute. I know somebody might be rushing back from the coffee room or somewhere, so we'll get underway, return for the last half of our presentation, which is going to be including the VSBE program at the end. So we still got some more SBR compliance considerations to get through. We're getting underway in just a moment. I'd like to give everybody a chance. I know it's hard sitting in front of the computer. I really do appreciate you guys because it's a lot, and we are going to get back underway. We had a little bit of a break. Everybody pretty much is still on board. A few folks did say that they had to leave, and so they did. We're recording. Also letting you guys know, we do also track participation. So those of you who are able to stay on board, that's a report that we get as well. Those who participated, because all this adds up to you guys getting more information and hopefully being more better equipped to be able to be in compliance with the program. So SBR compliance considerations. And actually, before we get that underway, we were talking about a lot when it came to the PRG and that process. And hopefully, as I said, you've got links to the PRG, frequently asked questions, the guidance and best practices for implementation, and the worksheets. And so reading those is really helpful. I tried to go through because these are the questions that you guys ask me in real time, and we go right back to the document. So I thought, let's go to the document, and maybe that will help because it's a lot, and you all are tasked to do with a lot. We all are. So if you have any questions about the things that we discussed, please feel free to throw those in the chat. And if it comes up to you later, you can ask. You know, we're pretty informal here. There's some few things that I would like to get through in terms of compliance considerations, which talked about basic contract compliance tasks should include review and tracking of the following items: pre-contract tasks, review agency contracting procedures, participation in the procurement review group. That's what we talked about. Some agencies have not made that allowance for SBR liaisons to do that, but it's central that you be involved in that process, or someone is wearing that hat in the procurement review group process in a formal way. Participation in the pre-bid conferences. This is also an opportunity for liaisons to do that outreach to small businesses, so you get to know who they are, they get to know who you are. You're making sure they understand, even beyond maybe this particular solicitation, that they you are their bridge to be doing business with your agency. Looking at the bid paperwork review, having that review. Post-contract tasks, ensuring compliance with small business reserve requirements, ensuring vendors remain certified in the SBR program during the contract. As to whose responsibility that is, you know, at the end of the day, if a vendor does not remain certified, their participation doesn't count. It only counts for the time that they are certified for that SBR designated contract. So that regular communication with vendors, whether it's via email or somehow whoever's monitoring the contract is checking the effective date and their expiration date of their SBR certification when they are awarded the contract. So prior to the award, they have to have a valid SBR number and a valid expiration date to be awarded. So monitoring to say, hey, make sure you keep that certification and compliance, stay certified. Participating in discussions on contract performance issues, depending on the liaison position, they may or not be involved in other contract and monitoring tasks, but being aware if there are issues that you're there, again, to be that bridge for the small businesses. Reporting best practices. Annual reports have assigned PDF that should be submitted along with the Excel report. Currently, quarterly reports do not require a signature currently. If you're looking at the guidance that's in our toolkit, we did that in particular during COVID. We didn't make agencies have to sign quarterly reports. We're really making sure now that the annual reports got to be signed off, and there are a few who submitted some annual reports, and I'll be flipping back to you to say, hey, where's the signature for these? Because they are supposed to be signed. We want to make sure that the agency heads, people who are the signatures, are aware that these are the numbers that are going to be publicly reported. We don't want people to come back and say, we never knew. And so that's why the signatures on the annual reports are so important. When it comes to quarterly reports, these are important because now we're looking at the mid-year point to see who's on track to the 15% and who's not. Finishing processing the annual reports from fiscal 2022, but now we are finished the second quarter of, I'm sorry, fiscal 2021 was the annual report. We finished the second quarter of fiscal 2022, and I've only gotten about 50% of agencies have submitted quarterly reports. So July, August, September, first quarter report, November, December, January, the second quarter report, and our quarterly reports are cumulative. It's allowing us, so if you didn't submit the first quarter, submit the second quarter and go back to the beginning of the year. We need to see where you are. You should know, your agency should know where they are at this point mid-year in terms of how are you getting, how's it looking in terms of getting to the 15% SBR designation, and what things could be done differently. But if you don't know, you never take your temperature, you don't know if you have a fever. So timely data submissions, again, we're looking at, we need to see if they're being filled out correctly, if there are problems, allowing timely publication for the annual report. It's been a lot to go through. Some new folks haven't quite understood the process, and so want to make sure that you are getting the instructions, following the instructions, and reaching out if you're not clear. Trish has a question. I thought that they lose designation for the length of time that was due to an oversight and they still qualify. We could still count those payments for the sake of the program. So if they're not, our policy, our leadership and the policy has determined that if they are not certified, it's not counted. Now, if there's like a little, they got out of certification one day, but if they were awarded a contract and then lost the certification, they don't lose the contract, but you don't get to count if they're not staying in the program. We're trying our best to help the small businesses understand that if they're not engaged, we can't, it does not grow the program. If they come in for a contract, come in, come out. So we're trying to get them engaged and stay engaged, and we're relying on all of us working together to do that. But the way that the law is now, interpretation is if they are not certified in the program, then they don't get to count. They get to keep the contract, but we don't get the credit for it. And that's the incentive, is to get them to work with us. I mean, it just, I don't love it, but this is where we are. Most agencies, I mentioned, had submitted their SBR annual reports. Those who have not will be noted as non-responsive. The instructions and templates are located in the SBR toolkit. That's for the fiscal 21 annual report. That's why it's important to go to the toolkit each new fiscal year. Please, we got folks returning reports, templates that are like 3 and 4 years old. And I know you guys have other things to do, but we are doing our best to keep the toolkits updated so that they reflect what is going on now. As I mentioned, we've got a note section now in our annual report template, as well as the quarterly report template. And in looking at, and Alan mentioned it too, this is your opportunity in this note section to explain, but if you're using an old template, then you don't know that we're not getting an opportunity to know what's happening in terms of your agency and why you didn't attain. If you're attaining your goals, we still use the current template, but you don't have as much to explain. Now, it's help if you want to explain how you were able to get to those goals. That is very helpful. For those agencies that are not attaining their goals, you might look at the annual reports on our website and reach out to the agencies that are making it. If you're a university that's not making the goals, but there are other universities that are, maybe you want to look to see what they're doing right and communicate with our colleagues. We advise you and ask to prepare your reports as soon as possible. In the case, as mentioned, some corrections may be required using only the most current templates. Providing the backup data to your report submissions is really, we need it. Some are submitting PDFs of your quarterly reports and no backup, like what reports are you pulling these from? Something else in terms of, let me go here. Let me give me 1 second. Let's see where we are. Wanted to mention the quarterly report is due no later than 30 days following the quarter being reported. Should contain data from the start of the fiscal year. There was some confusion. Just to clarify, the quarterly reports are cumulative. So by the time you get to the fourth quarter report, we do not require a fourth quarter report. The fourth quarter report is you're preparing for your annual report. So you submit on your quarterly reports, quarter 1, quarter 2 for the fiscal year, and quarter 3. Quarter 2 is still, as I said, only about half of the agencies turned in quarterly reports for the second quarter. We're beginning to compile these. So those who have not turned them in, that's going to be problematic. In particular, if you're not meeting the 15%, because those are the agencies that our leadership wants to reach out to your agency to find out what's going on. Are the agency heads, the heads of procurement, aware that the goals are not being met, even with the new executive order? This is meant to drive performance up. So if it's not driving it up, we don't know that until we see the annual report, until we see the quarterly reports. And so please, and let me go here if I can. Give me 1 moment. I'm going to go for those who have not been regularly visiting the toolkit. This is the SBR toolkit, and we've been updating in our compliance bulletins, procurement compliance bulletins, which you'll see here. You can link to our most current compliance bulletin was issued, was it February 14th? And we are letting you know what is due, what is past due, and what is coming ahead. If you're not getting these, excuse me 1 second. Let me 1 second. I did that. If you are not getting the procurement compliance bulletins, please let us know, because we will add you to the mailing list. I believe I just got out of my thing. Things are going so well. Give me 1 moment. My computer just froze, so give me just a minute. Give me 1 moment. And I'll get this up. Here we go. Sorry about that. Give me 1 minute. I had it. Okay. I'm going to give me just a moment because I'll pull it up in a second. Let me cancel this one. Okay. Now we're here. Sorry about that. Make sure you guys are great, because I'm being technically challenged right now. Okay, now I'm back. Wait a second. I wanted to get right back to the toolkit, and hopefully I'll get it. Thank you. Appreciate your patience. The toolkit, because you can see the annual reports here, but we had you directed right down to what's due now is the second quarter report. And the quarterly report instructions that are here. And I spent so much time on the PRG that I'm not going to be able to delve. Okay, of course, the page I look for doesn't exist. Great. It's here. Give me 1 second. I know it's here. So I have instructions. Give me one. Whenever you're trying to find something, I apologize for that, because I know the instructions are here. I've loaded them. I'm going to go to my next. In terms of, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. To get to the SBR toolkit, you go to the homepage of our website, and here's the SBR. Here's the link. I don't know why my computer is not linking me to it right now. I was just on there. I'll be back there. But when I get a moment, I am going to show you where that is. But the instructions are there. And if you're following the instructions and you're using the template, it is step by step. The SBR quarterly reports and annual reports are not cumbersome. It really is pasting in. Well, you have to use the pre-prepared reports if you can, the 67, 68, and the credit card reports. And it's detailed which reports you should use in order to complete and have the data for your documents. But I am not getting it yet. But at least I can take you right now to seeing the resources that are here. I'll check to make sure that this is here. Like I said, I downloaded the reports and the templates before, and I don't know why they're not coming up right now. Give me 1 second. In addition to what is due now and the report templates, I mentioned the procurement compliance bulletins are also here, so you can see the different updates on our programs. There's always an SBR section in terms of what is ahead and what is due, as well as my contact information. This also policies and procedures, what we're talking about in terms of OSP, the Office of State Procurement, and their website. We link to that. We also link to the SBR overview so that you can, in real time, be seeing information about the program as you have questions about it. So we take you right there. I'm going to go right now, also the compliance library, the report, and I mentioned the report templates. I will try to get there in just a moment, but letting you see that these are all here. The procurement forecast, and there are sometimes folks are asking for clarification. The quarterly and annual reports are about performance. That is, in real time, how did your agency do? How are you doing as it relates to the metrics that we're collecting quarterly and annually? The procurement forecast is a look ahead. It is, what does your agency expect to procure in the upcoming fiscal year? This is also one of our mandated reports. We'll be updating the 2023 template very shortly, because once the budget is approved, 60 days after the annual budget's approved in Annapolis, the forecast, you can begin looking at what it is you expect to spend. And it is just that. It is a look at what you're going to spend. We know it's a forecast, and we tell our audience, our vendors, that this is a look. It is not in stone. The forecast data includes all projected purchases over $100,000 and above for the fiscal year. Again, projected. Keeping in mind, this forecast is provided to the public. We talk to the public about it. They're looking for this forecast. We upload this database on or before June 30th, on or before July 1st. The new fiscal year starts July 1st. Businesses are anxiously awaiting the procurement forecast so they can look at the year ahead in terms of what agencies expect to buy, perhaps the goods or services that they provide. And so that, for clarification, you only are turning in one procurement forecast. That one forecast includes all projected purchases, inclusive of SBR designated procurements and contracts that may contain MBE and VSBE goals. And if you've not been able to determine, if it's not a recurring contract, it's a new one, and you're not sure if it's going to be designated as SBR, that's understood. That's understood that you don't have to, but those that you know that are going to be designated as SBR, it's great if you can put those that are recurring contracts that had MBE and VSBE goals. Please add those to the forecast. And this is a spreadsheet, Excel that you guys are filling out, and we upload this to the procurement database, procurement forecast portal, and this is it. That's on our website. It is one of the busiest, if not the busiest part of our website. Businesses are looking to see what's available, and they're using this to try to figure out what resources they're going to dedicate to trying to get business with different agencies. We're going to, so that's the procurement forecast. The strategic plan, the SBR strategic plan, is currently in MBE strategic plan as well. We'll be updating that template as well, and we may have changes in that. We'll keep you updated. But the strategic plan is having your agency look back at what you did in the last fiscal year and look ahead. What's your plan for getting to the 15%? Because you're not going to get to some agencies, many are not going to get there without a plan. And so this is an opportunity to map out. It's just answering some questions about what your agency's performance is, what you're doing as it relates to the different thresholds of SBR procurements. And so it helps you to map it out. The agencies that do this do better. They at least see where the holes are and where they can connect, where they can fill these gaps. And so that's the strategic plan also in the SBR reporting toolkit. Something else to make you aware, and that is that there are several mailboxes, and I know it can get a little confusing, and that's why this is here for your reference. When it comes to the SBR waivers, this is the SBR waiver mailbox, submitting all exemptions and waivers that are covered under the executive order. And for those of you, some have sent them to me. I will then direct you to kind of forward it back to the SBR waiver mailbox so that we can collect those. Sometimes I'll answer you from mine, but we want to make sure that they're going to the SBR waiver mailbox. For the SBR reports, for SBR quarterly and annual reports, those go to the SBR GOSPA mailbox. MBE has their own mailbox for their quarterly and annual reports. And when it comes to other required reports, the procurement forecast that we just talked about, as well as the SBR and strategic plans, and questions and issues as it relates to the bi-monthly, I should have said quarterly compliance calls, because we're now quarterly, not bi-monthly. The compliance calls, those go to the compliance mailbox. And when we are sending out notifications, emails, communications as it relates to any of these reports, we're directing you to the appropriate mailboxes. And it just is so helpful because we're getting so much data that when it's in the right mailbox, we can sort through it and make sure that we can account for everything that has been submitted. And at the end of the day, we got to be able to capture all the data. And so really appreciate, this is just a nice little handy tool so you know what is going to which mailboxes. And so if you have any questions about the what we've talked about today as it relates to SBR, getting the reports, questions about your reports. I'll answer Alan's question in just a moment. Please reach out to me directly, either via email or my phone number, and also the cell phone, the mobile phone is also on the contact us page on our website. Alan mentioned, should procurements 25 million and above go to the compliance mailbox? Yes, they should. Yes, they should. And our policy advisor, Chantel Kai-Lewis, is the person that reviews those currently. But yes, they should go to that compliance mailbox. And really,
my intention is to come down every month.
Give me one sec. I'm sorry. Give me one. Excuse me. Excuse me, whoever that is, could you please mute your microphone? I think Tim.
Hey, Kathy.
Tim Burns. Okay, I'll mute you. Can please, whoever has their microphone open, mute it? Thank you. I know it pops back and forth.
So sorry.
No problem. No problem. No problem. I just didn't know where it was coming from. Sometimes meetings get hacked, and I was like, okay, if it's us, I'm good. If it's not, so please reach out. And so, Alan, yes, you can direct those to the compliance mailbox. And if you have any other questions, I will take them now. I realized that I was spending so much time on the PRG that I didn't leave enough time, because I have to make sure that we're going to be doing our VSBE update, which is really important for those who are not able to participate in the MBE training earlier this month. If you are responsible for VSBE data collection and program and certification, you'll get some good information from my colleague Danielle Davis in just a moment. But right now, if you guys have any other questions, I can take them now, or you can put them in the chat. And then I'm going to introduce my colleague who's going to need about a few minutes, 20, 25 minutes or so, to talk about the VSBE program, which is really getting a lot of flesh on the bones here. So I'm going to, without further ado, introduce to some and present to others. You saw her briefly this morning. Danielle Davis is Maryland's first veteran-owned small business enterprise VSBE compliance manager. In this role, she's collecting and analyzing performance data. She's implementing the best practices, facilitating training to internal our audience here, as well as to external stakeholders, vendors. She's also going to enforce regulations in all aspects related to the VSBE compliance, recommend strategies for improving overall performance, and lead outreach efforts to engage more veteran entrepreneurs in the VSBE program. That being said, for those of you who saw the procurement compliance bulletin, and maybe some of you who did not, we are calling all veteran procurement professionals. I'm doing this on behalf of Danielle, so leading her in. If you are a procurement professional that served in any of the military branches, we would like you to tap it. We want to tap into your expertise as we are working to grow and expand our VSBE program. If you're willing and able to serve as a resource partner, please email our new VSBE compliance manager, Ms. Danielle Davis. Her email is going to be at the end of this presentation with your name, years of service, and which branch of the military you served in. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ms. Danielle Davis.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. Can everyone hear me okay? Lisa, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just great.
Okay, great. Yes, originally born in Anchorage, Alaska, and raised in Southern Maryland. I am so glad to be on board with GOSPA and be the first VSBE compliance manager. So thank you for staying on. We're going to get into the Veteran-Owned Small Business Enterprise Program, talking about what it is, certification, reporting, all of that as well. So sit tight with me and let's get started. So the VSBE program is provides contracting opportunities on state-funded procurement for certified veteran-owned small businesses, and only the work of a certified VSBE firm performing either as the prime or the sub can be counted towards the achievement of the 1% statutory goal. Now, note that there is a minimum of a 1% overall federal goal for the VSBE program, and I really want to emphasize that it's just the minimum. Let's serve the veteran, population like they have served our country, and give them the attention. I know this is a small goal compared to SBR, and that's something that I'm going to be working on. But if we can keep that in mind, please don't forget about the VSBE program. So our veteran-owned businesses must meet the following standards to be determined eligibility under the SBA, the Small Business Administration guidelines, and must be 51% owned and controlled by one or more individuals who are veterans. And so how do we determine if they're veterans? Well, that goes right into the certification process that our vendors have to go through. And just like SBR, the biggest component of the certification process is in EMA. So the first step for our vendor registration is for the vendor to complete a profile in the eMaryland Marketplace Advantage online portal called EMA. The second is to determine their veteran verification, which is either going to be handled in one of two paths. Either the Maryland Department of Veteran Affairs is going to assign them a number, and we'll go through that process briefly, or they can go with the second path of the federal Vets First verification program. And then the third is the application process back in EMA, and it's very, very easy, quick, and free. That's first and foremost. So this is what the first step is going to look like. We've gone over some of these screenshots before, but we're just going to briefly go over them also due to time. I know your time is very valuable, so thank you for staying with us. So once the vendor goes to emma.maryland.gov, they're going to click on New Vendor and Register Now. They'll enter the information and they will navigate through those questions. They'll complete the answers, which are very similar to the SBR program. So once again, we talk a lot about Emma and how both the VSBE program and the SBR program combined in Emma are very similar. To get the veteran verification, the vendor will go to our website. They can either go the Veteran Affairs route or the Vet First program. So let's click on the first one. If we were to go through the Maryland Department of Veteran Affairs, this is the route that they will take. They will have to complete this online form or download the form for their verification of veteran status, and they will have to submit their acceptable veteran documentation. And these are most of the examples listed on the form. Now, this is a PDF form, and they can mail it in or they can email it in to our representative at the Veteran Affairs Office. They will receive a MDVA number, which is their VSBE certification number that they will ultimately go back and put on their application. Now, if they were to go the VetBiz route, which is on the next slide, thank you, they will go through VetBiz's verification process, completing that information and those questions, and then VetBiz will update them in their directory and assign them what is called a DUNS number. Now, once again, there are two different types of numbers. They can get an MDVA number or a DUNS number, and each one of those numbers is going to be the certification number in Emma. So once again, everything links back to Emma. And when they go for the third step of going into Emma and completing these questions, then that information comes to me and I will approve it based upon the checks and the balances that we have in place and provide them an active expiration date and approve their certification. Looks like we have a question, so I'm going to go ahead and try to answer that as we go along. Thank you, Christopher. State and federal funded procurement can include VSBE participation goals. Correct. Right. So there is a 1% goal currently, but it can be more than that. So yes. Okay, so now let's see how Emma is used for the VSBE program for the vendor, for the procurement officers. And the biggest thing, we're going to give you some tips and some tools. You will want to make sure that you visit procurement.maryland.gov website. Click on the tab for vendors and businesses. Also access our quick reference guide. And this is what, so let's walk you through these steps. Okay. So yes, the QRG is going to give you a lot of helpful information, even though we're providing and going through screenshots now. It is more in detailed. So this will help you identify potential VSBE vendors for solicitations. And we're going to help you do that process as well in terms of screenshots. Okay. And if you're like me, sometimes you want to print out things versus, you know, you at least should have other documentation that you can have handy, paper copy versus, but you do have this electronically as well to our vendors. Now, the biggest thing for the Emma QRG for VSBE is number 17, which is the public search for the vendors. So once again, it's going to lead you back to Emma. If you don't take anything away from what I tell you today, I really want to drill home that emma.maryland.gov is where we're doing most of everything. Even though we have had some issues with Emma, if for any reason that you have questions or concerns or need assistance, please let us know, because we are here to help. So the public vendor search. So there's two different types of vendor searches. There's an internal vendor search and an external. Right now, we're going to talk about the public or the external vendor search. So when you go to Emma, you'll click on the public vendor search, and you will be able to sort it by the VSBE vendor box, which is located under the county, the state, and it will just give you VSBE, or it can give you SBR. And remember, this is to help you identify your VSBE vendors so Emma is the certification process, not VetBiz. VetBiz only assigns a number to vendors that are going the federal route, but the actual application to be a certified VSBE vendor is in Emma. And the good thing about Emma is that this database is updating daily. I certify vendors daily. SBR is certifying and adding to their directory daily. So these vendor searches are going to increase vastly. And so Emma is the most up-to-date information at the click of a button. It's a one-stop shop. All right. So this particular vendor search can be used to seek potential VSBE vendors for solicitations. So it has its benefits. We are going to get into its pros and its cons. This public search function should not be used to verify the certification status, because we're going to go into that, how you do that when you log in to Emma. So this is just the external that anybody has access to. Joe Schmo down the block can download this vendor search, because it is an external and it is public. So you can download this search in an Excel spreadsheet by selecting the wheel icon at the bottom right of the page, and it will come up in an Excel spreadsheet, and you can sort it by a variety of different ways. All right. So let's talk about the actual verification of certified VSBE vendors, because that's where I really want to hit home today, because it has come to my attention that their VetBiz previously was used to try to verify information. So once again, there's two different paths. So VetBiz is only good for some of those. It's not good for the state for the VA option, because that is an option. So once again, Emma, you can log in and go to vendors, hit browse vendors, and also select the VSBE vendor box. And this is going to navigate, or we can navigate you through where you find the actual certification information. So you'll go under documents, and you'll make sure that they have a VSBE application on file, that the status is green, which means approved, and that the document date that the dates have not expired. So this is the first place where you will go to make sure that their certification is valid because it has the specific dates on that documents tab. Another place where you can go and where you'll need to go and get familiarized with is the company information tab. The company information tab has the actual VSBE certification number. So it could be that MDVA number, or it could be that VetBiz number, and that the status says approved. Only the approved status is valid. I'll show you in a few other screenshots a couple other different statuses, but if it does not say approved, then it is not approved. So only the approved are valid with a valid expiration date. And some people don't understand or don't know that the VSBE program, when we certify a vendor, their verification is only, or their certification is only good for 1 year. So they do have to go in and do a new application annually. So that is why it's important for you to look at the certification dates. And it's also good to look where you may see in the system where there may be multiple applications, because the dates are just going to be tied to whatever application is going to be valid for that time period. So that you may see that they have 2 or 3 VSBE applications, and sometimes even SBR, as our screen indicates now. So you'll see that there's a current certification, and then there's a renewal application that is on file. And if that vendor is going through the renewal process, those dates aren't always there because I am in the process of recertifying them. And their dot will not show up green as valid. It will show as invalid. So just a couple tips, that we want to give you, that we want to make sure that we are reiterating on this call today. And we'll have additional trainings once we have some great things coming in the next coming months that I can't wait to share, that we've been working on. So let's go into another tab to help navigate some more information. So the verification of the certified VSBE vendors in the internal vendor search. So once again, there's 2 different searches, the external, and then this internal search is just what the admins and the procurement officers have access to. And sometimes you will see 2 expiration dates, and that directly applies to when there is 2 different applications on file, where one is going to be expiring and then the new one will be taking place that following day. So just keep in mind, it's okay sometimes if they have those 2 dates, that they are still valid, because they are going to have that new application that takes place or takes into effect the following day. So here are a few things to look out for. This is an example on our screen of a VSBE certification number that has all zeros. And the application status says approval in progress. So like I said, there's a few different statuses, and that VSBE certification number is not valid with all zeros. So just be mindful that only in that says approved, and it has a valid either MDVA or VetBiz number for that VSBE certification number is valid. And you can also look to see if that VSBE vendor box is checked. It is still a glitch in the system right now that we're working on. If a recertification is in progress and that box is still checked, but it is something that we're working on with Emma for them to update in the future. So once again, make sure to check on the dates to make sure it's a valid certification number, and that that application says approved. Okay. And the same pretty much goes for the internal search that you have access to by checking the box of the VSBE vendor box or the SBR box and downloading it in an Excel spreadsheet, and being able to sort it to get that at least 1%, where we don't want to, minimize that 1% because it could be larger. So please don't forget about the VSBE vendors because our database is growing very quickly. So things that you want to, when you're conducting your search, to remember when you log into Emma. Be certain that all the information has been checked thoroughly in the document section and the company information section of the status, the expiration date, making sure that it has not expired and that it is valid with the green dot listed. That you are able to download spreadsheets to access these vendors. And the wheel is located at the bottom of the right-hand screen to do so, and to download in an Excel spreadsheet format. It will look a little bit like this, and you have access to sort it by company name, by supplier code, even other dates that are on that will populate.
Just a quick one, Danielle. There's a question about VetBiz providing NAICS codes. I wasn't sure if you saw it from Alice Cook.
Okay. And did I experience that only by the So what I have been advising vendors is that so the difference between the two processes or the two paths is that the state, the VA office and being certified, that's the state route. If they want to do federal contracting, then they would also or can do the VetBiz. And so we even have vendors that have both. So it's okay. It just depends on what type of bidding that they're wanting to do on the different contracts. So if they have a VetBiz, we will generally use the VetBiz number because that supersedes the state or the VA. But it is possible for them to have both. And we are working on a function when we do update Emma for the VSBE program for it to have under the company profile both a section for VetBiz and for their DUNS number and their MDVA number, because we are finding that it is common for vendors to have both. But once again, all of that is going to be in Emma. So you'll have access to that information in Emma, and we're working on that, getting those updates very, very soon. So still, Emma is your primary in terms of going to see those certifications, but it is possible for them to have both an MDVA number and a DUNS number. And I hope that answered your question, Alice. If not, we can always get into that a little bit later too, via email. Just for the sake of time, I don't want to have you guys on past 12 o'clock. So I'm briefly just going to talk about the compliance because that is important as well, and the reporting, and just a very quick update on my side because this is the nitty-gritty of why I'm here and why I was hired. So we want to make sure that we get into the compliance components. So we do understand that that if a solicitation contains an MBE goal and a VSBE goal, that participation by a subcontractor duly certified as an MBE and a VSBE may be counted towards meeting both contract goals. And to the extent where the participation meets the cumulative and overall contract goals or portions thereof that is committed to perform. So let's just say hypothetically, the firm, there's an example of where we have, give me 1 second. Okay. So let's say we have an example where the overall, there's an MBE goal and a VSBE goal. And the contract is for 5,000, and the MBE, we trying to find, make sure that I have that right. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay. So just a reminder that there can be multiple and dual goals met. There is all of the forms located on our website and online that need to be completed also for the VSBE program, and any additional amendments based upon COMAR 21.11.1408. And we also have a waiver process as well, and that is referenced in COMAR 21.11.1407. So we just want to make sure that you also know that we have annual reports, and our annual reports are due on October 1st, and that the oversight of the VSBE program was transferred to the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, including reporting back in October 2018. And I will be, myself, will be enforcing that to make sure that we get those reports in, as well as my colleague, Nichelle, to make sure that you all are getting that information into us as well. And to use data from the 700 series reports from Answers or internal databases to capture the VSBE payments and awards. And we will have to change that report type to VET in Answers in order to get the appropriate information. At this time, credit card payments cannot be tracked in Answers. Therefore, agencies will have to track these payments manually. And in the next slide, I'll show you the form that needs to be completed, which is the utilization report. Now, this is just a screen grab of the last, the 2020 fiscal year. You want to make sure that you are completing the right fiscal year form for the up and coming annual report. So right now, we just have one report. But if people are not completing those reports in a timely manner, then additional things may come down the pipeline. And this is just a screen grab, so make sure that you are getting the correct form in the toolkit on our website and the off of the procurement site as well. All right, thank you for bearing with me. Once again, I'm new, but we have had some major changes happening in the short time period that I've been here. So as of February 2022, we've introduced new legislation that requires to establish an advisory committee for the VSBE program. And we are already in the works to get this committee up and rolling and meeting very soon, which is also one of the reasons why I have the call to action for any veteran procurement professionals, because we would love to hear from you as well. Also, something that the 1% goal was repealed, and our office is required to adapt new regulations establishing a new goal, but for right now, that 1% goal continues. So once again, I'm going to push it and re-emphasize it that that's just minimal. So please think about the VSBE program. And something that you should have on your radar. So currently right now, there is no designation of a VSBE liaison yet. SBR and MBE have them, but just know it is coming soon and very soon. So we will be reporting that information or requesting that information from the all agency heads by the next reporting cycle. They will be required, all agencies, to have and designate a VSBE liaison. And we'll be having some additional trainings once those regulations take into effect at the end of March. So once again, we have some big things coming down the pipeline for the VSBE program. And I am excited to work with you, get your buy-in, answer questions, assist you. And I definitely, this is my first presentation. So thank you for being an amazing audience and sticking with me.
You are the best. Thank you so much. I didn't want to clip your time. I wanted to make sure you at least had 30 minutes and then time for some questions. And I know that we tried to pack a lot in. Daniel, thank you so much, really. And to everyone who's been able to stay on board now, if your questions were not answered today, and again, I want to apologize. I had a little technical, since I start getting excited, I had a technical thing. I couldn't take you to my reports, but they are available on the SBR, in the SBR toolkit. If you would like to schedule one-on-one time, I'm happy to navigate through that with you guys in terms of completion of the reports. I've done it with agencies and will continue to. Danielle, did you have something else you wanted to say as well? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. Yes, also, as I'm growing in procurement and learning more about procurement, same. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. This is great for me, and I want to make sure that you all understand really the VSBE program, because even though it is a baby program, a small program, we are mighty in terms of the vendors and what we're trying to do around the state of Maryland with the contracts and getting them funding as well. So
absolutely. The veteran community has really driven this program to Maryland. Their advocacy is why Maryland has its own VSBE, because they said we don't want to go through all the hoops of the vet biz if we don't want to do federal contracting. And so so you were helping to build that program, and
it's such a quicker process. If they go through the VA, that's generally a 5 to 7 business day processing time versus going through vet biz, which could be up to 3 months. So they both paths have their pros and their cons, but it can get both. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to answer the questions kind of as we went through, because it is important for us to understand that Emma is your one-stop shop, and it is possible for vendors to have both DUNS and an MDVA number.
All great tools, and someone was talking about federal contracting versus state contracting. There are different tools and different certifications. And the question that was asked about NACE codes and things like that, Emma has its own set of codes and commodity codes that VSBE vendors, all vendors at Emma, have to select the codes of work or services that they provide. And you as procurement people will be looking to see what codes they have. So they're not NACE codes. The feds use the NACE codes, MBE uses the NACE codes, but in the Emma system, you're looking at the United Nations Product Service Codes, UNSPSC codes. And so it's kind of finding that match in terms of what vendors provide those goods and services.
And if there's anybody on the call today that feels like we may need to go more in depth in terms of not just screenshots, but actually have Emma training, or you feel like you need, you want to learn more, let us know. Reach out to us so that we can set that up as well.
And finally, I would also like to let folks know about upcoming events. we have changed our registration process or invitation process for our internal trainings. We now simply add you to the quarterly compliance call meeting invitation. We're doing Google Meeting. It's just much easier than doing Eventbrite and making you register. We invite everybody to our meetings, all procurement professionals, compliance, SBR liaisons. We invite you to the quarterly compliance call. And then if this is not in your bucket, just decline the invitation, okay? But we use the SPAG meeting invitations, that list. We use the SBR liaisons list. We use the MBE liaisons list. All those who deal with the compliance and the reporting for the 3 socioeconomic programs that we oversee, we're trying to get you into the compliance call. And that is now quarterly. And you see the next one's coming up March 24th. Then we got May 12th, and you all get to drive that call as well. If there are issues that are coming up, some came up today in terms of what to count and how does this happen. Those are also questions that can come up as it relates in terms of the compliance call. You can submit those to the compliance call mailbox. So that's coming up. SBR liaison training, the next one is in June. MBE liaison training, the next one is in June as well. These dates are also posted in our procurement compliance bulletins, and we've been sending those out pretty much monthly because our team has been expanding, and so our ability to communicate, I think, is improving because of our newer team members, Danielle and others. We're just trying to get to you as much as possible to reinforce the information that you need to do the work that you're required to do. And so that is there. And the last but absolutely not least is a thank you. We ask that this survey is just a customer service survey so that we can see how we're responding to what you need. Is this valuable information to you? And just a little constructive feedback. We all need it. You know, we didn't create this for ourselves. We're doing it for you as our partners. And so if you can communicate, you can follow this link. This link is also in the meeting invitation. It's just a simple several question survey. So really appreciate if you guys are able to respond to that today. If you can. Also, the slide deck as well as the recording are going to be in the meeting invite, probably usually I do it within the day or 24 hours, and then I'm going to post it in the toolkit. Any final words from you, Ms. Danielle?
No, I just thank everyone for hanging in with us, even through some of our technical difficulties.
Yes.
And that we're here for you guys if you need anything, honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I'm going to see if I can stop recording. That's always a fun thing. There we go. I stopped recording. So I'll stay on the line for just a bit in case anybody has any, sort of last minute questions. But we finished. Go ahead.
And be safe. No, just be safe if you're out on the roads, because we heard it's getting a little bad out there with the rain or the sleet. So
I see we've got a hand up. Tim raised his hand. Hi, Tim. Can we hear you?
I think he had that up.
Did he have it up? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Not trying to not be responsive. I just didn't even see.
No.
I just wanted to apologize for the technical difficulties. I truly do apologize. I hope it didn't ruin your recording.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm not recording anymore, I don't think. Okay. Hopefully I stopped recording.
I still see it.
1 second.
So you may want to hit that again. I don't know.
Here we go.
I'm trying